So you're building a new healthcare app. Awesome. But your very first decision is probably your biggest. What are you going to build it on? Get this right and you've got a product that can actually last. Get it wrong and you could be looking at a total rebuild in just a few years. So how do you make that choice? Let's get into it. It really all comes down to one big question. What's your number one priority? Are you in a race to get a beautiful working app into patients' hands right now? Or are you more obsessed with making sure that the clinical data you collect today is perfectly crystal clear and usable 30 years from now? This is the fundamental dilemma. Do you build for speed or do you build to last? To figure this out, we are going to look at two completely different philosophies, MedPlum and OpenEHR. The easiest way to think about it is like this. MedPlum is the rocket ship. It's an all-in-one platform designed to get you up and running fast. Then you have OpenEHR. It's more like a master blueprint. It's not a vehicle at all, but a set of super strict rules for creating data that's meant to last, well, pretty much forever. Okay, let's simplify this with an analogy we're going to stick with for this whole explainer. Think of MedPlum as the app engine. It's the thing that provides all the power to get your app moving and working today. And think of OpenEHR as the clinical memory. It's the permanent perfect logbook, making sure every single piece of data is recorded and understood forever. So what exactly is this app engine? Well, MedPlum is what's called a headless EHR. What that really means is it gives you all the complicated backend stuff, the database, the API, all ready to go, so your developers can just focus on building a great user experience. It's built on FHIR, which is kind of the universal language for health data, and it lets your team build incredibly fast with the tools they already love, like React. Now let's talk about the clinical memory. OpenEHR is basically the polar opposite. It's not an app platform. It's a super strict set of rules for defining data. It uses something called archetypes. You can think of them as these perfect unchangeable templates to model clinical ideas. The goal here isn't to build an app. The goal is to make sure that a term like systolic blood pressure, sitting right arm, means the exact same thing to every system, everywhere, forever. Zero ambiguity, ever. Okay, theory is one thing, but how does this stuff actually work in the real world? Let's put our engine and our memory to the test. We're going to follow a patient through their entire healthcare journey and see exactly where each of these tools really shines. Just look at how their jobs are so perfectly divided here. First up, onboarding. MedPlum's engine is what powers the slick app you use to book your appointment. It's handling the transaction. Meanwhile, in the background, OpenEHR's memory is defining what tobacco use actually means, making sure it's captured perfectly. Next, active care. MedPlum is the one running the workflow, sending an alert to your doctor's phone. But the really complex clinical data, like a detailed oncology plan, that's being stored with absolute precision in the OpenEHR memory. Then we have interoperability. MedPlum's engine connects easily to Apple Health because it speaks FHIR. But it's OpenEHR that acts as the master translator, guaranteeing the meaning of that data doesn't get lost along the way. And finally, the long-term history. Years from now, MedPlum's API is what lets you pull up your old records on your phone. But it's the OpenEHR memory that makes sure that data from 5 years ago is still readable and clinically valid. So it's pretty clear these tools are built for very different jobs, right? And that means neither one is a silver bullet. They each come with their own set of trade-offs, and you absolutely have to understand them before you commit to one or the other. Let's talk about the engine's limitations. MedPlum's biggest strength, FHIR, can actually be a bit of a weakness too. See, FHIR is amazing for exchanging data, sending it back and forth, but it wasn't really designed for long-term storage. That can sometimes lead to what they call data bloat. And what if you need to record something really specific, something rare? You end up having to build these custom extensions, which can become a real headache to manage later on. And what about the memory? What's the catch? Well, the biggest hurdle is simple. It's only the data layer. There's no app, no user interface, no login screen, nothing. You have to build that whole shebang from scratch. On top of that, its modeling language is incredibly powerful, sure, but it's also very academic and complex. It's just a lot harder to find a developer who's fluent in OpenEHR than it is to find one of the thousands who can get up and running with MedPlum tomorrow. So you've got the engine for speed versus the memory for longevity. Both have some serious pros and some real-world cons. Which brings us right back to the most important question of all. How do you choose the right path for your project? The good news is the decision framework is actually pretty straightforward. It all boils down to your primary goal. So let's look at exactly when you should choose one over the other. Okay, you should choose MedPlum if you're a startup or a digital health company where time to market is everything. If your number one goal is to launch a polished, patient-facing app as fast as humanly possible, and you want to use a modern tech stack that developers are excited about, MedPlum is pretty much designed for you. It's the engine to get you on the road today. On the other hand, you should choose OpenEHR if your project's timeline is measured in decades, not quarters. If you're building something huge, like a regional health record for an entire country, where the absolute non-negotiable top priority is the integrity of that clinical data for generations, then OpenEHR is your foundation. In this world, getting the meaning perfectly right is way more important than how fast you can build version 1. So as you start to plan your next healthcare app, the choice is really yours. Are you building an engine for today, designed to move fast and win the market? Or are you building a memory for the decades to come, a foundation of perfect data? Your answer to that single question will define your project's entire future.
My name is GK, and I help startups build great products around AI, blockchain, and Industry 4.0. If you want to plan your MVP, or scale your startup, or build your next unicorn, I would be happy to help. Please feel free to reach out.